Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Brasilia after attending the 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro to hold bilateral talks with President Lula on key areas of cooperation. BRICS leaders push for empowering the global south, reforms and responsible AI. PM Modi urges for lead by example approach. Also says for India, climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty. Donald Trump hosts Netanyahu at White House as pressure mounts on Israeli PM to clinch Gaza ceasefire deal. Trump says Hamas wants to end the conflict amid latest round of talks in Doha. US President unveils first wave of steeper tariffs on over a dozen countries. Japan, South Korea hit with 25% tariffs. Negotiating deadline extended till the 1st August. Rescuers race against time to find missing people as catastrophic flooding in Texas claims over 100 lives, 21 still missing. And in sports, Italy's Yannick Sinner and Novak Djokovic survive spirited challenges by opponents before advancing to Wimbledon quarterfinals. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Brasilia after attending the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. On arrival, PM Modi was warmly received by José Muzio, Minister of Defense of Brazil, at the airport. The welcome was made delightfully musical by the traditional Brazilian samba reggae performance. PM Modi is in Brasilia for a state visit to Brazil, where he will hold bilateral discussions with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva on the broadening of the strategic partnership between two nations in areas of mutual interest, including trade, defense, energy, space, technology, agriculture, health, and people-to-people linkages. Later, Prime Minister Modi was given a grand traditional welcome in Brasilia. Acharya Jonas Masetti and his associates recited the Shiv Tandav Stotratram, while the indigenous people of Brazil's Amazon rainforest chanted local mantras. Taking to social media platform X, PM Modi said, and I quote him here, "The Indian community accorded a memorable welcome, once again highlighting how passionate our diaspora is and how connected they remain with their roots." Earlier, Prime Minister Modi addressed the session on environment COP30 and global health at the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. In his intervention, Prime Minister stressed on strengthening shared efforts to make planet healthier. Prime Minister noted that for India, climate change and environmental protection have always been subjects of the topmost priority. This has also been a part of our ancient culture. For India, climate change is not merely an issue of energy, it is about maintaining balance between life and nature. India is driven by the spirit of people, planet and progress. India has launched numerous initiatives like Mission Life, which is lifestyle for environment, Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, Tree for Mother, International Solar Alliance, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, Green Hydrogen Mission, Global Biofuels Alliance, International Big Cats Alliance. Despite being the world's fastest growing major economy, India was the first country to achieve its Paris commitments ahead of the schedule. For India, climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty. And India believes that without technology transfer and affordable financing for countries in need, climate action will remain confined merely to climate talks. The health of people and planet is interconnected. The COVID-19 pandemic taught us that viruses do not arrive with visas, nor are solutions chosen based on passports. Hence, we have to strengthen shared efforts to make our planet healthier. And Prime Minister Modi met with the President of Uruguay, Yamandu Orse, on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The two leaders held discussions covering the full spectrum of bilateral relations. A key area of discussion was strengthening bilateral trade and investment. Both sides expressed interest in the expansion of the India-Mercosur preferential trade agreement, aiming to unlock greater economic potential and trade complementarities. Prime Minister expressed gratitude to President Orsi for the strong condemnation of the recent barbaric terrorist attack in Pahalgam and appreciated Uruguay's solidarity with India in the fight against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. And Prime Minister Modi also held a meeting with President of Bolivia, Luis Alberto Arce, in Rio de Janeiro on the sidelines of the 17th BRICS summit. The two leaders reviewed bilateral cooperation and expressed satisfaction with the progress achieved. They expressed satisfaction over the ongoing development cooperation between the two countries, including through quick impact projects and capacity building initiatives under the iTech scholarship programs. Prime Minister Modi expressed solidarity with the people of Bolivia in the wake of the severe flooding that occurred in March-April 2025 in La Paz and several other parts of the country. He also congratulated Bolivia for joining the International Solar Alliance. Prime Minister also conveyed his best wishes on the historic occasion of Bolivia's 200 years of independence. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi addressed the inaugural session on reform of global governance and peace and security, as well as a session on strengthening multilateral economic, financial affairs and artificial intelligence at 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. PM also underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. Prime Minister also called for working towards responsible AI.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed the inaugural session on reform of global governance in peace and security, as well as session on strengthening multilateral economic, financial affairs and artificial intelligence at the 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. In his address at the inaugural session on reform of global governance in peace and security, Prime Minister Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to enhancing the voice of the Global South. PM Modi stated that global governance institutions such as UN Security Council, the Bank and the World Trade Organization must undergo urgent reform to reflect contemporary realities. Calling for strong global action against terrorism, Prime Minister Modi noted that those funding, promoting or providing safe havens to terrorists must be dealt with in the harshest terms.
Honorable Prime Minister underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. In this context, he noted that all the leaders have condemned Pahalgam terrorist attack in strongest terms.
While in his address at the session on strengthening multilateral economic, financial affairs and artificial intelligence, Prime Minister Modi said that BRICS could play an important role in shaping a multipolar world. Prime Minister Modi offered 4 suggestions. First, BRICS New Development Bank must follow demand-driven principle and long-term sustainability for granting projects. 2. The group considers setting up a science and research repository which could benefit the Global South countries. 3. Focus must be given to make the supply chain of critical minerals secured and resilient. And number 4, group should work on responsible AI while looking into the concerns of AI governance. It should also give equal importance to promoting innovation in the field. At the conclusion of the leaders' session, member countries adopted the Rio de Janeiro Declaration. The leaders in the declaration noted that we reiterate our support for a comprehensive reform of the United Nations, including its Security Council, with a view to making it more democratic, representative, effective, and efficient. We condemn in the strongest terms the terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir on 22nd April 2025, during which 26 people were killed and many more injured. We reaffirm our commitment to combating terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, including the cross border movement of terrorists, terrorism financing, and safe havens. We extend full support to India for its BRICS chairship in 2026 and holding the 18th BRICS Summit in India. On the sidelines of the 17th BRICS Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Prime Minister Modi also held bilateral meetings with various world leaders. PM Modi met the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar bin Ibrahim. PM Modi thanked Prime Minister Ibrahim for his strong condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met Cuba's President, Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez. The two leaders reviewed bilateral ties in the areas of economic cooperation, development partnership, fintech, capacity building, science and technology, disaster management, and healthcare. Besides this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met his Vietnamese counterpart Pham Minh Chinh on the sidelines of BRICS Summit in Brazil. Bureau Report, DD India.
And India's Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Nirmala Sitharaman participated in the BRICS Finance Ministers and Central Bank Governors meeting held in Rio de Janeiro on Monday, where she underscored India's economic resilience and its commitment to inclusive multilateralism. During the high-level discussions, the Finance Minister highlighted India's robust economic performance, attributing it to strong domestic demand, sound macroeconomic management and well-calibrated fiscal policies. Minister Sitharaman further said that India's policy response to trade and financial restrictions has focused on diversifying markets, promoting infrastructure-led growth and implementing structural reforms aimed at boosting competitiveness and productivity. All right, still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu nominates US President Donald Trump for Nobel Peace Prize. President Trump says the US would be sending more weapons to Kiev to help it defend itself against Moscow attacks. And man killed after firing at US border patrol station.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar. अरे it fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. US President Donald Trump hosted Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday. Both the leaders discussed the situation in West Asia. Speaking to reporters at the beginning of a dinner between US and Israeli officials, Netanyahu said the US and Israel were working with other countries who would give Palestinians a better future. It suggested that the residents of Gaza could move to neighboring nations. On the other side, Israeli officials held indirect negotiations with Hamas aimed at securing a US-brokered Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal. The proposal envisages a phased release of hostages, Israeli troop withdrawals from parts of Gaza, and discussions on ending the war entirely. Moving on to tensions with Iran, Trump said he would like to lift sanctions on Iran at some point. Trump said he also wanted to discuss with Netanyahu the prospects for a permanent deal with Iran.
The things we have with Iran is, we have they call they are very biting sanctions. And I would love to be able to, at the right time, take those sanctions off, give them a chance at rebuilding, because I'd like to see Iran build itself back up in a peaceful manner and not going around saying death to America, death to the USA, death to Israel, as they were doing.
Earlier, Netanyahu met U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Trump's Middle East Special Envoy Steve Witkoff at the Blair House. United States had scheduled talks with Tehran. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said the meeting would take place in the next week or so. Israeli officials also hope the outcome of the conflict with Iran will pave the way for normalization of relations with more of its neighbors such as Lebanon, Syria and Saudi Arabia. In an interview, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said he believes Iran can resolve its differences with the United States through dialogue, but trust would be an issue after US and Israeli attacks on his country.
Once again, I would like to tell you that it is Israel that does not want such things to happen in the region. Israel does not want to see peace and tranquility in the region. But I would like to once again repeat that the United States President, Mr. Trump, is capable enough to guide the region towards a peace and a brighter future and put Israel in its place, or get into a pit, an endless pit or a swamp. And that is a war that Netanyahu wants the United States or the US president to be dragged into. So it is up to the United States president to choose which path that I told you about.
And what came as a surprise for Trump at the meeting with Netanyahu was Israeli leader's Nobel Peace Prize nomination for him. Netanyahu handed over the nomination letter to Trump, saying it is well-deserved, reacting on which Trump thanked him and said, "Coming from you in particular, this is very meaningful." Israel was working with the United States to find countries who would give Palestinians a better future. Trump has received multiple Nobel Peace Prize nominations from supporters and loyal lawmakers over the years and has made no secret of his irritation at missing out on the prestigious award. And US has revoked the Foreign Terrorist Organization designation for Al-Nusra Front, also known as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham or HTS, according to a State Department memo filed on Monday. This is a major step as Washington moves to ease sanctions on Syria. The move comes a week after Trump signed an executive order terminating a US sanctions program on Syria to help end the country's isolation from the international financial system and building on Washington's pledge to help it rebuild after a devastating civil war. And expressing unhappiness over Russia-Ukraine conflict and especially with President Putin, President Trump said on Monday the United States would be sending more weapons to Kiev to help it defend itself against Moscow attacks. Trump said the US would be sending primarily defensive weapons, mentioning nothing about Patriot missiles, of which he talked about on Friday.
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. It's very sad. So many people are dying in that mess.
And after a call with Trump on Friday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he had agreed to work on increasing Kiev's capability to defend the sky. Both leaders also discussed joint defense production purchases and investments. Ukraine has been asking Washington to sell it more Patriot missiles and systems that it sees as key to defending its cities from intensifying Russian airstrikes. Moving on, a 27-year-old Michigan man, Mosqueda, was shot dead by U.S. Border Patrol agents after opening fire with an assault rifle on a U.S. Border Patrol station in the southern Texas city of McAllen on Monday. The McAllen Police Chief Victor Rodriguez said Mosqueda fired dozens of rounds at the facility's entrance early morning, prompting agents to return fire. As per the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, a McAllen police officer and a Border Patrol employee were injured in the shootout. Authorities later discovered more assault weapons and ammunition in Mosqueda's nearby Chevrolet, which also had spray-painted writing on its side. And the U.S. Army installed barbed wire along the top of the border wall with Mexico on Monday in an effort to reinforce security measures. Soldiers were seen deploying the wire near Ciudad Juarez across from El Paso, Texas. The move follows a similar action in February when U.S. Marines reinforced steel columns of the border wall with barbed wire in Tijuana near the California border. The Hope Border Institute criticized the barbed wire deployment, warning in fact it endangers migrants and border communities and reflects a harsh immigration enforcement approach. The organization called for humane, lawful immigration processes, emphasizing safer, more affordable alternatives that uphold U.S. legal and humanitarian standards. And Tom Homan, the administration's border czar, Monday said that ICE would flood the zone in sanctuary cities to meet a goal of 7,000 detentions every day. Last month, U.S. immigration officials walked back limits on enforcement targeting farms, restaurants, hotels and food processing plants just days after putting restrictions in place. ICE officials were told a daily quota to make 3,000 arrests per day, 10 times the average last year during former President Joe Biden's administration, would remain in effect. Speaking upon exiting the White House, Homan told reporters immigration efforts plan to double down and triple down on sanctuary cities, where he said officials are releasing public safety threats.
3,000 a day is too much. I want to remind them, do the math. We'd have to arrest 7,000 every single day for the remainder of this administration just to catch the ones Biden released the nation.
At least 22 people were injured on Monday when a fire erupted at a major telecommunications data center in Cairo, causing widespread communication disruptions throughout the capital. The fire caused phone and internet outages, with national connectivity dropping to 62%. The disruption also affected digital banking services, online transactions and healthcare facilities. The health ministry said that there were some injuries due to smoke inhalation. The National Telecom Regulatory Authority announced the restoration of services in a few hours after the power cut in the building for safety. Smoke was visible over the Ramses district. State news agency MENA reported the fire was contained and an initial investigation pointed to an electrical short circuit as a likely cause. In a major move towards justice and remembrance, Chile's government has officially expropriated the land of Colonia Dignidad, a former German enclave notorious for child abuse and torture during the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet. Once led by German cult leader Paul Schaffer, the site became a prison for dissidents and a symbol of deep-seated human rights violations. The 117-hectare property will now be transformed into a memorial and education center. Officials say this step is part of Chile's broader efforts to reckon with its painful past and honor victims. As Latin America has transitioned to democracy in recent decades, truth commissions and public displays documenting past abuses have become common in many countries, including Chile. Dr. Uday Raj Sharma, Director General of the Department of National Parks and Wildlife Conservation in Nepal, was awarded the Rinpoche Nawawang Tenzing Zangbu Environment Conservation Award in Kathmandu on Monday. Dr. Sharma is a conservation expert and former secretary at the Ministry of Forest and Soil Conservation. He received the award in recognition of local conservation efforts against climate change. He gave the concept of the park and people buffer zone for Sagar Math and all other conservation areas in Nepal. Environmental conservationists in Nepal are actively working to combat climate change and environmental degradation, especially in the vulnerable Everest region. Now, the United Arab Emirates said on Monday it had successfully rescued all 22 people aboard the Magic Seas after an Ad Ports Group vessel Safine Prism responded to a distress call from the commercial ship following an attack by Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis in the Red Sea. The Magic Seas was taking on water after the attack and remained at risk of sinking, the company's representative had said earlier. The ship had been carrying iron and fertilizer from China to Turkey. The attack ended half a year of calm in the Red Sea, one of the world's busiest shipping routes, where Houthi attacks from the end of 2023 through late 2024 had disrupted shipping between Europe and Asia through the Suez Canal. And after more than a century in France, the Gigi Ayokwe drum, a treasured relic of Ivory Coast's Ebri people, is finally returning home. French colonial troops seized the sacred talking drum in 1916, once used to send urgent messages over 30 kilometers, including warnings against forced recruitment. The 3-meter-long 430-kilo drum became a symbol of Ivorian resilience and identity. On Monday, France's lower house of parliament approved its repatriation following the Senate's nod in April. The drum, long preserved by the Quai-Branly Museum in Paris, has now been restored and is set to reconnect Ivorians with a powerful echo of their past. In a heartwarming moment straight out of a nature tale, a stranded elephant calf was rescued from northeast India's Panbari forest by the Kaziranga staff and Centre for Wildlife Rehabilitation and Conservation. The calf had wandered away from its herd, but thanks to swift and expert action, it was safely reunited with its mother, who welcomed her baby back with trunkfuls of affection. Assam Chief Minister Himanta Biswa Sarma also praised the effort, posting, "Everyone deserves motherly love, a perfect blend of wildlife care, compassion and cuteness." Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Royal Mint unveiled a commemorative coin celebrating 50 years of rock band Iron Maiden on Tuesday. The coin, designed by artist Albert Quirantes, features the band's infamous mascot Eddie in a dynamic pose that will strike a chord with fans worldwide. The design features numerous hidden Easter eggs, referencing the band's career, albums and world tours. And grandmothers of Plaza de Mayo announced on Monday that it had restored the identity of his 140th grandchild. It is a human rights organization that has been searching for children kidnapped during Argentina's last military dictatorship for decades. The recovered grandson was born in 1977 in the clandestine detention center in Buenos Aires province after his parents were kidnapped in December 1976. And memorial service was held for victims of the 7/7 bombing on the 20th anniversary on Monday. Hundreds, including current and former British politicians, gathered at London's St. Paul's Cathedral for the ceremony. On July 7, 2005, 4 British Muslims detonated bombs on London's trains and a bus during rush hour. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. Up next, we'll get you more details on why India abstained from UN resolution on Afghanistan. June recorded hottest ever in 12 countries and was exceptionally warm in 26 other countries. And after the break, we get you latest weather predictions from across the country. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Recap of our top stories. Prime Minister Modi arrives in Brasilia after attending the 17th BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro to hold bilateral talks with President Lula on key areas of cooperation. BRICS leaders push for empowering the Global South, reforms and responsible AI. PM Modi urges for lead by example approach. Also says for India, climate justice is not an option, it is a moral duty. Donald Trump hosts Netanyahu at White House as pressure mounts on Israeli PM to clinch Gaza ceasefire deal. Trump says Hamas wants to end the conflict amid latest round of talks in Doha. US President unveils first wave of steeper tariffs on over a dozen countries. Japan, South Korea hit with 25% tariffs. Negotiating deadline extended till the 1st August. Rescuers race against time to find missing people as catastrophic flooding in Texas claims over 100 lives, 21 still missing. And in sports, Italy's Yannick Sinner and Novak Djokovic survived spirited challenges by opponents before advancing to Wimbledon quarterfinals. Well, getting some other aspects of the top story we are tracking at DD India News Hour. Prime Minister Modi is in Brasilia for his state visit to Brazil, where he will hold bilateral discussions with President Lula da Silva on the broadening of the strategic partnership. DD India exclusively speaks to India's ambassador to Brazil, Dinesh Bhatia, on New Delhi's key priorities and the state of India-Brazil relations. Take a listen.
As we continue our special coverage of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's five-nation visit, we are joined in by Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia, who is the Ambassador of India to Brazil. Thank you so much, sir, for talking to DD India. How do you think, where is the trajectory of the relationship between both the leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Lula, considering this is Prime Minister Modi's fourth visit this time?
Well, between India and Brazil, as a matter of fact, Brazil was the first country in Latin America where we opened our embassy in 1948. Brazil and India have always been close countries. They have been part of Global South. And since 2006, our bilateral relations were elevated to strategic partnership.
As you said, this is going to be a very important, much awaited bilateral that is going to happen. But having said that, both countries are agriculture powerhouses. As you said, there's going to be a cooperation. What kind of cooperation can we look forward to in terms of both the countries coming together? Food security, much more sustainable farming practices?
Yes, as I said, there is a discussion between ICAR and Embrapa of Brazil for concluding an agreement on agricultural research. Besides that, let's keep in mind that while the two countries are superpowers in their own right for agriculture and agriculture export, we are not competing with each other. So our trade basket, export basket is different from export basket of Brazil. So in that way, there is also a complementarity because Brazil has certain produces which we need, and there are certain produces of India which they need, of course. And that is being discussed.
One last question. Biofuels, one of the important sectors, mining, one of the important sectors, and as you also said, defense cooperation. Can you elaborate a little more on these three ripe sectors of cooperation?
Mining is very important. Brazil has abundance of critical minerals and rare earth minerals, and where India is looking for partnerships, and we are going to further discuss this during this visit. This is one sector where I think the potential is humongous, and we need to explore all of that. Oil and gas is another sector where we already have investments in Brazil, and we can also use Brazil's expertise in offshore oil and gas for doing something in India. Then you coming to defense cooperation, there is a discussion, and our public and private sector companies are talking about collaborations at the manufacturing level, at the export and import level. A lot of discussion is going on.
So here, as global attention shifts to Brazil with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the BRICS summit, as well as for this landmark bilateral that is going to happen between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Lula, we'll bring to you all the important updates, insights and exclusives from Brazil only for DD India. With camera person Jai Shankar and Piyush, this is Meghna Dev for DD India from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
India abstained from voting on the United Nations General Assembly resolution on the situation in Afghanistan on Monday, citing ongoing concerns about the use of country's territory by designated terrorist groups. The text titled "The Situation in Afghanistan" was adopted by a vote of 116 in favor to Israel and United States against, while 12 abstentions, including India. India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Parvatneni Harish, noted that a business-as-usual approach without new and targeted initiatives is unlikely to deliver the outcomes the international community envisions for the Afghan people. He added that India is closely monitoring the security situation in Afghanistan.
India is closely monitoring the security situation in Afghanistan. The international community must direct its coordinated efforts towards ensuring that entities and individuals designated by the UN Security Council, the Al-Qaeda and their affiliates, ISIL and their affiliates, including Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed, along with their regional sponsors who facilitate their operations, no longer exploit Afghan territory for terrorist activities.
Ambassador P. Harish also spoke about the humanitarian assistance provided by India to Afghanistan.
India's immediate priorities in Afghanistan include the provision of humanitarian assistance and the implementation of capacity-building initiatives for the Afghan people. We have been working closely with UN agencies to support the Afghan people in critical areas such as health, food security, education, and sports. India's commitment to Afghanistan's reconstruction is demonstrated through more than 500 development partnerships across all provinces.
All right, global weather updates now. Starting from India, the India Met Department issued orange alerts for several states including Uttarakhand, Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Odisha and Telangana for Tuesday. As per the weathermen, these states may witness heavy to very heavy rainfall in the coming days. Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand and East Rajasthan may receive rainfall until July 10, while Vidarbha and Marathwada region in Maharashtra, Telangana and Gujarat could experience rainfall till Wednesday. Continuous rain is predicted for the next 6-7 days in Goa and the Western Ghat in Maharashtra. Saurashtra and Kutch in Gujarat are also expected to receive showers on July 12 and 13th. Meanwhile, Delhi NCR region is under a yellow alert and is likely to receive light to moderate rainfall on July 8. Besides this, hot and humid weather conditions will prevail over Tamil Nadu, Puducherry and Karaikal till July 9. Kolkata woke up to heavy rains on Monday morning amid IMD's yellow alert. And the northwestern state of Rajasthan just had its wettest start to the monsoon in years. The Met Centre in state capital Jaipur has issued a warning of heavy rain starting in the state from Tuesday. Orange alert has been issued in 6 districts and yellow alert in 24 districts. On Monday also it rained in Kota, Jaipur, Bikaner divisions. So far, 128% more rain than normal has been recorded in the state. And the Chennai Met Department in southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu has predicted a mix of rain and scorching heat across the state over the next few days. The capital city Chennai, known as the gateway to South India, usually experiences hot and humid weather conditions during the summer and early monsoon months. The city's weather is expected to remain warm and humid with occasional chances of light rainfall due to the ongoing southwest monsoon influence. Other parts of the state will experience light rainfall, which is likely to be accompanied by thunderstorms. Rainfall is likely to occur in districts including Karaikal, Nilgiris, Coimbatore, Tiruvannavali, Theni and Thenkashi until the weekend. The rainfall is likely to continue till July 12, 2025. And after enduring a prolonged spell of heat and humidity, people across the Indian Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir finally received a welcome change in the weather as heavy rainfall lashed several parts of the region on Monday. The downpour brought temperatures down sharply, offering immediate respite to residents who had been struggling with soaring heat over recent weeks. From the urban stretches of Srinagar and Jammu to the remote hill areas, the rain refreshed the parched landscape and restored a sense of calm to the valley. The sudden weather shift has been widely appreciated especially by those working outdoors and commuters who had been bearing the brunt of the harsh summer. And from California to Catalonia and from the hills of southern France to the forest of Syria, wildfires are raging across continents. Fueled by extreme heats, these blazes are pushing firefighting efforts to the limit as climate change continues to accelerate the scale and intensity of wildfire emergencies worldwide. DD India's Yashasvi brings you this report. Dry brush, sustained winds and high temperatures are once again joining forces to serve a heady and extremely dangerous fire cocktail to California. More than 1,400 firefighters are battling the state's largest blaze of the year, the Madre Fire, burning through Los Padres National Forest. Last week alone, crews fought 65 wildfires statewide amid worsening conditions. The fire has scorched over 80,000 acres so far. A similar scenario is unfolding across the Atlantic. In southern France, a fierce wildfire is tearing through hilly region, destroying at least 1,400 hectares and forcing evacuations and the closure of a major highway. Hundreds of firefighters and water-bombing aircraft have been deployed to put out the flames that have destroyed through at least 1,400 hectares of land. In Catalonia, Spain, firefighters confronted a wildfire in the Pals Mountains of Tarragona province that has scorched over 150 hectares. Smoke billowed heavily as crews worked to stabilize the fire flanks amid challenging conditions. 75 firefighting teams, including 16 aerial units and 2 large aircraft, are engaged in containment efforts. Syrian emergency workers with aviation help from Turkey and Jordan are battling to put out wildfires that have devoured 100 square kilometers of forest in the province of Latakia. High temperatures and remnants left behind from the 13-year unrest in the region are fueling the country's worst blazes in years. Climate change, rising global temperatures, prolonged droughts and stronger winds are fueling faster, more destructive fires, pushing emergency systems to the brink across multiple continents. Bureau Report, DD India. And the month of June was the hottest ever recorded in 12 countries and was exceptionally warm in 26 other countries. According to the data from the European monitor Copernicus, some 790 million people around Europe, Asia and Africa experienced their hottest June to date. For the residents of 26 other states, including Britain, China, France, Democratic Republic of Congo and Ethiopia, the month of June was the second hottest on record. In Europe, sweltering heat was recorded in the Paris region, in France and parts of Belgium and the Netherlands that are not used to such temperatures. In Asia Pacific, Japan also had its hottest June on record since 1898 with record temperatures of 1.2 degrees Celsius higher than usual, logged in 14 cities during a heat wave. South Korea and North Korea followed similar heat wave. In East African country of South Sudan, temperatures passed the normal June average by 2.1 degrees Celsius, an exceptional deviation from the norm in a region of the world where temperatures tend to be more stable. And in response to Morocco's hottest year on record in 2024, authorities and climate experts have ramped up efforts to issue heat alerts and spread health information as the country braces for another intense summer. With temperatures soaring above seasonal norms, officials are focusing on raising public awareness about the dangers of extreme heat, particularly in vulnerable rural areas. The Morocco government has partnered with meteorological services and health agencies to distribute timely heat warnings, hydration tips and emergency guidelines through local radio stations, social media and SMS. This initiative is part of a broader push to adapt to climate change impacts. And the Texas flash floods of 4th July left more than 100 dead, including many children. Search teams plodded through muddy river banks and flew aircraft over a flood-ravaged central Texas landscape as hopes dimmed for finding more survivors among dozens still missing from a disaster that has claimed more than 100 lives. There's no such thing as a natural disaster. Geographers like to say, a reminder that human choices turn hazards into tragedies. Texas Hill Country sits in an area known as Flash Flood Alley. Warm Gulf air rushes up a line of steep hills and cliffs that arc southwest down, cools and dumps torrents onto thin soils that quickly give way to bedrock. Runoff then funnels through a dense web of creeks. Water rises very, very quickly within minutes or a few hours. The early hours of July 4 proved that. An urgent NWS warning went out shortly after 1 a.m. But most campers were already asleep and in the area where phones are banned and the coverage is patchy. Darkness made escape routes further hard to judge. At least 27 of the victims were girls and counselors caught at a summer camp when flood waters surged through the area over the 4th of July weekend, leaving little time to escape. The camp, located along a river, was overwhelmed in a matter of minutes. People are still searching for their neighbors and friends.
A week ago at Camp Mystic, I had 5 granddaughters in Camp Mystic, and they finished their first session and they're home now. But some of their friends were there for the second session, and my heart goes out to all those little girls.
Experts stress that NWS forecasters performed admirably under the circumstances. The real failure was not a bad weather prediction, it was a timely dissemination of forecast and warning. Forecasters have warned of more flooding as rain falls on saturated ground, complicating recovery efforts involving helicopters, boats, dogs, and some 1,750 personnel. President Donald Trump is due to visit Texas on Friday as the White House slammed critics claiming his cuts to weather agencies had weakened warning systems. Human-driven climate change has made extreme weather events such as floods, droughts, and heat waves more frequent and more intense in recent years. Bureau Report, DD India. Rescuers waded through rushing waters in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. As flash floods struck parts of the state, the area saw multiple rescue operations, though no injuries or fatalities have been reported so far. Chapel Hill was among the hardest hit regions after tropical storm Chantal made landfall and moved inland across South Carolina. According to U.S. National Hurricane Center, Chantal is expected to shift northward then northeastward over the next 24 hours. Still to come on this edition of DD India News Hour. US stocks drop on Trump's tariff news while Asian shares edge higher as Trump left the door open for additional negotiations. Former world number 1 Deepika Kumari and Asian Games gold medalist Jyoti Venom to lead India's challenge at Archery World Cup. And we get you glimpses of the ancient city of Penico, unearthed in Peru after 3,500 years.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Hello. Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Business updates now. US President Donald Trump reignited his trade war by threatening more than a dozen countries with higher tariffs on Monday. The US President renewed his threat of a 25% tax on products entering the country from Japan and South Korea and shared a batch of other letters to world leaders warning of levies from 1st August. Countries including Indonesia, Bangladesh, Thailand, South Africa and Malaysia were slapped with duties ranging from 25% to 40%. Trump warned of further escalation if there was retaliation against the levies.
The president will also sign an executive order today delaying the July 9th deadline to August 1st. So the reciprocal tariff rate or these new rates that will be provided in this correspondence to these foreign leaders will be going out the door within the next month, or deals will be made. And those countries continue to negotiate with the United States. We've seen a lot of positive developments in the right direction, but the administration, the president and his trade team want to cut the best deals for the American people.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba on Tuesday said that Japan would continue negotiations with the United States to seek a bilateral trade deal that benefits both countries. While Tokyo and Washington have failed to reach an agreement so far, some progress has been made in talks that helped Japan avert a hike in US tariffs to around 30% or 35% as suggested recently by Trump. Ishiba told a meeting with cabinet ministers to discuss Japan's strategy on the tariffs. While South Korea said it planned to intensify trade talks with the United States and considers President Trump's plan for a 25% tariff from August 1st as effectively extending a grace period on implementing reciprocal tariffs. The East Asian nation also plans to use it as an opportunity to improve domestic systems and regulations to resolve the trade deficit that is a major interest of the United States and advance key industries through a manufacturing renaissance partnership between the two nations. Malaysia's Trade Ministry said on Tuesday it will continue to engage constructively with the United States to achieve a balanced and mutually beneficial trade agreement outcome after the country was hit with the revised 25% tariff on its exports to the US. And the imposition of the 25% levy on US importers of all goods from key Asian allies Japan and South Korea rattled Wall Street, with the S&P 500 index suffering its biggest drop in 3 weeks. The S&P 500 closed down about 0.8%. US listed shares of Japanese automotive companies fell, with Toyota Motor closing down 4% and Honda Motor off by 3.9%. And Asian shares meanwhile edged higher as Trump left the door open for additional negotiations after imposing new tariff rates on partner nations. Japan's Nikkei opened lower on Tuesday but then turned positive after Trump described that deadline as firm but not 100% firm and said tariffs may be adjusted for some countries. In South Korea, the benchmark Korea Composite Stock Price Index opened up 1.50%. The won and the yen gained slightly, while the dollar dipped 0.2% after jumping the most in 3 weeks Monday. And US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will visit Malaysia this week for meetings of Southeast Asian nations in his first trip to Asia as America's top diplomat. The State Department billed the July 8-12 trip as a move to reaffirm Washington's commitment to the Indo-Pacific. US President Donald Trump announced plans for tariffs on Malaysia and 5 other countries in the 10-member association of Southeast Asian nations, whose ministers Rubio will join for meetings in the Malaysian capital Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia faces a 25% tariff, Laos and Myanmar 40%, Cambodia and US ally Thailand 36% and Indonesia 32%. Rubio will seek to firm up US relationships with partners and allies unnerved by Trump's global tariff strategy. Trump's announcements seemed certain to make that task harder. All right, sports updates now. We'll start with tennis. World number 1 Jannik Sinner progressed to the Wimbledon quarterfinals after Grigor Dimitrov retired due to injury, while Novak Djokovic survived a scare. Sinner was staring at the exit door after trailing 3-6, 5-7, 2-2 before Dimitrov crashed to the ground. He threw in the towel after a short assessment by a doctor. Sinner himself suffered a nasty fall in the opening game of the 4th round clash and suffered discomfort in his right elbow. The 3-time Grand Slam champion is due to face American 10 seed Ben Shelton in the quarterfinals. Djokovic endured a nightmare start to his match against Alex de Minaur but battled back to win 1-6, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. 38-year-old Djokovic aims to win a record 25th major title that would make him the oldest Grand Slam singles champion in the Open era. In the women's draw, Iga Swiatek continued her progress to the quarterfinals with a 6-4, 6-1 rout of Clara Tauson. Swiatek is a 5-time Grand Slam winner but has never made a Wimbledon semi-finals. The 24-year-old is in a strong position to win the tournament after the exit of many top seeds. In archery, former world number 1 Deepika Kumari and Asian Games gold medalist Jyoti Venom will spearhead India's challenge at the Archery World Cup Stage 4 that gets underway in Spain on Tuesday. The tournament will host 336 archers from 49 countries in Madrid from July 8th and 13th, with the last few spots for a World Cup final in China up for grabs. India has sent a 16-member squad to the Spanish capital, headlined by Deepika, who will eye a podium finish to add to her remarkable 37 archery World Cup medals. Meanwhile, Jyoti Venom will lead the women's compound team. The men's recurve lineup also features Dheeraj Baumadavera as India looks to build momentum heading into the World Cup final, which is scheduled in October. Now, an ancient city in Peru named Penico, dating back nearly 3,500 years, has been uncovered by archaeologists. Located about 200 kilometers north of the Peruvian capital, Lima. The site is thought to have been founded between 1800 and 1500 BC, around the same time that early civilizations were flourishing in the Middle East and Asia. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.